Google link. All right, so I will call to order our meeting of the Ad hoc subcommittee to review the regional agreement at 6:32. So our first item on the agenda is to approve minutes from the March 4th meeting, which was in the Google link. So I'm just gonna open that up for myself too. It's today's meeting. So these were my version is just lacking who took them and the time we adjourned. Carl, I think I might have asked you to take these too. Is that the case, or was it Linda?
I think those were Linda.
Okay. I don't think we can approve them without that information. So I guess we'll pass over that for now.
Yeah, I would confirm if it was Linda or Paul. If Paul, because I recall Paul taking minutes as well at some point in the past.
Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, Paul's marked as absent on this draft.
Then it was probably Linda. Would be my.
So we'll ask Randy to check in with Linda about those minutes. All right. So our main items for tonight are to discuss the letter for the towns, and then to figure out how we're going to present at the town meetings. So I would assume that we're going to want to have the committee approve whatever we send, right? Since it's, we're a subcommittee. So this was shared in the call to meeting, and let's see if I can share my screen, put them on the screen. Let's see, window. I can't share my screen because I don't have permission. All right. Well, we'll read through it. It's not as though we haven't taught remote classes for a long time, but all right. So does everybody have it up on their home screens or have access to it?
Yep.
You got it, Matt? Okay. So I'm also going to just on my own computer here open. I know I did have a message from Linda where she had some comments that she had sent along, which were mostly grammatical as well. All right. So the first bit is, the WRSDC embarked on the 5-year annual review of the regional agreement late due to the pandemic. We held a remote hearing to get feedback from the towns in April of 2021, received follow-up written feedback, and an in-person hearing in December of 2021. This document serves as a final report for the 5-year review, because we are required by the regional agreement to submit a report to the towns. So that's what this is. What do we think about that paragraph?
Seems fine to me.
Yeah, it seems, short and to the point. So
the next paragraph says, one topic that was raised primarily by representatives of the town of Holden was to consider changing the means by which towns can withdraw from the district. An a priori step would be to redefine the district away from a PK-12 district into perhaps PK, K8, and 912. As the town representatives indicated that the primary concern was K8, potentially in connection with needing another school in Holden to support expanding populations. Representatives from the other towns indicated a concern that such a measure would be hasty without fully researching what economic and educational reasons led to regionalization. The WRSDC recommends that the new superintendent appoint another ad hoc committee to explore the benefits and costs of partial deregionalization, concomitant with consideration of the effects of any potential new school in Holden on district finances. WRSDC recommends that this ad hoc committee start its work in fall 2023 and include representatives from each town. So Any thoughts there?
Do you think we have something already drafted as recommendation for the new superintendent? So rather than just say we'll do it, we already have something.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Matt?
Do you think we have something drafted for the new superintendent from the school committee saying such what we're asking him to do? Rather than just say in the letter, we're going to be doing this.
Oh, you're asking that we should so are you thinking they were being too direct or not direct enough in this paragraph?
I don't think we're being direct enough. I think that we should just at least have something that points to the question if someone were to ask, well, that's great that you say that. When is this going to be formed? Because I'm sure there are people that want to provide input as to that, including the town of Holden, right?
Yeah. Yeah, in both cases, we just the word we use, and we can change the word, is recommend. It does say fall 2023. The reason I think we initially put that in was just thinking he's going to have his hands full with lots of things, and this is a 5-year project. So, starting it by, in the second year might give him a sense of the lay of the land before now it's actually a he.
I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure we're prepared to answer that if it comes up.
Okay. All right, should we move on to the second paragraph? Okay. Another topic raised by many towns was budget transparency. The WRSDC hears these concerns and feels that they are better addressed outside of formal changes to the regional agreement. WRSDC recommends that the incoming superintendent establish a regular communication strategy around budgeting. For example, the most recent budget roundtable was more frank and open about the current challenges to the budget. WRSDC recommends the new superintendent formalize in writing a budget calendar in consultation with the town administrators and submit this calendar to the WRSDC for their consideration by December of 2022.
I guess I wonder if we need anything after the first sentence.
You mean get rid of everything after regional agreement?
Perhaps. I guess I'm just asking what other people think, because I mean, those are things we kind of always recommend on the other thing. I don't know if it really pertains to the regional agreement.
Yeah. What do you think, Carl?
I mean, the only thing I would say is that, I mean, it's a little bit, I guess, a little bit less confrontational as opposed to just saying it's better outside. Kind of, budget transparency was brought up, but it's not outside of the formal changes to the regional agreement, and then just basically saying like, yeah, we're not going to do it. Whereas there are things that we do want to try and make more transparent. So I mean, you could kind of go either way on that. But I mean, to Matt's point, that is kind of, it's not like we're saying anything novel or new there. We've been kind of harping on that a bit anyway.
Yeah, we maybe are saying too much. I think I'd be worried if we didn't say anything that is a little bit like, yeah, no. I do think that was pretty universal amongst the towns that they were displeased with the budget transparency. And I wouldn't want to leave that we're kind of given a, pound sand kind of response, which I don't think we're doing. But maybe we're saying too much. I mean, would a happy medium be ending after the third sentence where we recommend the incoming superintendent establish a regular communication strategy around budgeting and not get into all the specifics about how one would do that?
Probably, because that's where I don't want to cross the line with a new superintendent and say, hey, you've got to have a budget roundtable. What if he decides that's not the best approach that he wants to take? Where, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that maybe after the third sentence is more appropriate.
Yeah, that way we're not telling him too much what to do before he even sets this in the seat. I see you nodding, Carl. You're okay with that too? Okay, so we'll just delete that, and it's not as, pound sand, and it's not telling Jim what he's got to do. It seems like a, cutting the difference. So the third paragraph says, one member town requested that the district take on the expense of transportation to regional technical schools, in particular agricultural schools. This unplanned financial burden is challenging for our smaller towns. However, the WRSDC does not recommend that the district take this financial uncertainty into its budget without further consideration. WRSDC recommends that the towns collaborate to form another ad hoc subcommittee with district administrative representation to decide if they want to share this financial uncertainty, which would require increased support of the district's budget. Such an ad hoc committee recommends this change. We suggest that the towns request their school committee representatives to reopen the regional agreement and make that change. There is not broad support heard from the town representatives for this change, aside from shared concern about the challenges such charges present to the towns. That's a really long no.
Well, but I mean, I think like one of the things we talked about was, and it's kind of alluded to this, I mean, that potentially could be something that the towns could completely work out amongst themselves without the school committee even being involved in it. So, because it's something that takes place that really the district doesn't have anything, really any specific say in. So it kind of does at least kind of lead them to say that something the towns could collaborate on amongst themselves.
What do you think? Is this okay, or do you suggest any changes?
I agree with Carl. I'm okay with it.
And so number 4 says the WRSDC recommends changes to section 11 as described in the motions to clarify the language around assigning students to schools and to clarify the WRSDC's roles in supervision of district-wide programs for special education.
Can you repeat that again, Ken? I just want to hear it again.
The WRSDC recommends changes to section 11 as described in the motions to clarify the language around assigning students to schools and to clarify the WRSDC's role in supervision of district-wide programs for special education.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I heard it okay.
Good. So the next one is number 5. It says, at the suggestion of the DESE, the WRSDC recommends striking section 16 as the language is vague and the methods for use and approval of excess and deficiency funds is clearly described in MGL. WRSDC and the town still must approve any use of excess and deficiency funds for capital expenses.
I think that's good.
I think so as well.
Okay, and I'll after we're done, I'll go back and find when they had some grammar corrections, but let's just get through it ourselves first. Number 6, composition of the committee. The WRSDC recommends changes to section 1 as described in the motion. The current agreement is untenable as it does not meet the principle of one person, one vote. The new model provides appropriate representation per voter and will retain, let me change that, that's probably 2 members in Paxton and Princeton. Oops. Back there. Also addresses the concern that the WRSDC is too large and then limits the growth of the committee to meet the one person, one vote principle. The weighted voting method is in use in other regional school districts, including Quabbin, Nauset, Gateway, and Mohawk Trail. Changes would take place for the May 2023 elections. In the meantime, the WRSDC will need a bylaws and governance ad hoc subcommittee to determine how the committee wishes to do its business with a smaller group, perhaps moving more business from subcommittees into the full committee for greater transparency to the public. In short, by May 2024, the size of the committee will be 16. By May 2023, voting will be weighted by population. At the May 2023 elections, 4 seats in Holden eligible for re-election will be reduced to 2, and 2 seats for re-election in Sterling will be reduced to 1. At the May 2024 elections, 3 seats in Holden eligible for re-election will be reduced to 1, and 2 seats eligible for re-election in Rutland will be reduced to 1. I think I added some of that because remember Rundstrom kind of said, okay, the short means this is what's going to happen. I was like, yeah, we should probably write that down somewhere. This is what's going to happen. So
my only question is, do we need to explain one person, one vote? Do they know what that means? Because that's based upon population and representation, right? And one person, one vote's a little, I don't want to say it's misleading, but does our audience know what that? It could be construed different ways. Does the audience that we're sending it to know what that means? I know we go into it later on in the letter, but early it doesn't really state that.
no, that's fair. Let's see. So in the first sentence, the second sentence, it says the current agreement is untenable as it does not meet the principle of one person, one vote. So perhaps we can have a clause after that, right?
That's what I was thinking, maybe just something around representation to population. I'm not saying we have to put the sentence in now if you can think of it now, but I think it would help to just say what that is at that point.
Why don't we give it a swing? So I could say, meaning that each member should represent the same number of voters within plus or minus 5%. I believe that is what we were going for. So the current agreement is untenable. It does not meet the principle of one person, one vote, meaning that each member, each WRSDC member, I guess, meaning that each WRSDC member should represent the same number of voters, not voters, some number of
do we call them members or representatives? Members?
I don't know. Each WRC, I guess we call it representative. I think members is some sort of weird like slang we use in the committee. I don't know that it really has meaning. So the current agreement is untenable as it does not meet the principle of one person, one vote, meaning that each WRSDC representative should represent the same number of citizens within plus or minus 5%.
Perfect.
Okay.
See, Ken, you thought it was Friday. You didn't think it was Monday. Felt like Friday, and you're still operating at perfection.
It's almost like Wednesday brain. All right. At the end, it says any changes approved by at least 4 of the 5 towns are subject to further review by the DESE and approval of the commissioner. Thank you for your participation in this project and continued support of the district. I want to see. So Linda had sent an email when she apologized that something came up. So one I mentioned, and then okay, the two of her 2 suggestions were one that as I was reading it out loud sounded wrong, and I started to change. So that's good. Let's see. So when she was saying one was just grammatically wrong, the other was, where does it say 16? And sure, in May 2024, the size of the committee will be 16. She suggested will number 16. Or will be, what did she actually say? She suggested
why don't you just say 16 representatives if you're using the word representative later on?
That sounds good. Good. It seems grammatically more fluid than what we had. Okay. So that is that. So we can ask Randy to put that onto a letterhead and ask it to be put on our next school committee meeting to recommend it for approval by the committee. I mean, I feel like, we can't speak. We're speaking for the committee in the language, so the committee should, I would think, approve it. Do people agree with that?
Yeah, and unless I don't think we need to make a motion here, but I don't really see anything where we would say we didn't agree on this unanimously.
Yeah, it seems like by our consent, we seem to all be agreeing. And Linda also in her email to me had suggested it seemed pretty much what we had before and really just offered grammatical changes. So
Yep.
I think that is good. So the next item on the agenda is the town. So presuming that the full committee passes this, then we would need to be available at the towns. And I suppose each town does things differently. So, and Holden, I think we would likely be asked to make the motions. If there are school committee motions, I kind of remember doing that the last time we did it. I don't know if every town will be the same way, but at least we need to be prepared that there's a member in every town to present it and being prepared to defend it. Linda assumes she would do that for Sterling. I assume that both of you would be willing to do that for your towns. Matt, you're running for re-election, right?
I'm running for re-election. There's 3 people running for 2 seats, so I can't guarantee anything, but I would certainly guarantee if I get re-elected, I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll support it if I'm not re-elected as well.
Great. And I would assume that Mike will do it for Holden. I am not running for re-election, and our town meeting is after the election. So of course I'll stand up and support it if it seems as though it's necessary. But Mike will. I assume Mike will do it. I'll talk to him about that. Since he'll still be there and still be chair. And then we need to ask Paul. Paul is a 3-year member, right? He's not filling a 1-year seat.
Was he appointed for the seat that Eric Knowlton had relinquished?
I think he was.
I don't think that was a 3-year seat. I could be wrong. I thought that was a 1-year appointment. I could be completely wrong, but I don't know how Princeton operates. But I think it is a 1 year.
Yeah, right. He's probably up for election this go around, I would guess.
And who is our other Princeton member?
Dana Lorway.
Okay. So I can I'll reach out to Mike and see if he wants me to reach out to member Lorway and member Du Bois just to kind of like get a sense of what they're thinking there in terms of representation in Princeton. If neither are able or willing to do it, then Mike could go as a guest, be asked to invite it as a guest to the meeting or to do it. I think it should be a committee rep and not a district administration. But
Member Du Bois might also be running for re-election and already have that appointment and have no other people running. I don't know. I'd reach out to him as well and see what his situation is, because if he's planning on being part of the committee, he might make most sense since he's been part of a lot of these conversations.
Yeah, he would definitely. I know Princeton does their appointment to elections differently, right? Because they have a caucus rather than a letter. So I was looking at Princeton's website quickly to see if they had a sample ballot, but that's probably still too far away for that to be done. So I'll ask Paul first, and if he's running unopposed, then it would seem like the simplest thing to do to ask him to do it. I can't remember the last time there was a competitive election in Princeton, but this could be that year. So, all right. So after that, I guess the item on the agenda would be this subcommittee will have to meet at some point to approve minutes. And then assuming everything passes, the next year's chair, I suppose, can discharge it. The committee probably shouldn't discharge until the towns take action. or him that the chair may even wish to keep a subcommittee active until the commissioner responds, in case there's some processing that the commissioner needs to, that the committee needs to do with the commissioner's response. But that will be not my problem at that point. But the chair can decide what to do with that. So is there anything else we need to discuss tonight?
No.
All right. Well, I will send these items along to the appropriate person. I'll reach out to Paul for Princeton and Mike for Holden. And otherwise, I guess we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Matt?
Lavoy, yes.
Carl?
Otmar, yes.
And Mills, yes. So we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Likewise. Have a good night.
Thanks.